Melee is a game that no longer receives balance patches. The last balance patch happened in 2002, and we don't even use it in tournaments because it makes Fox a worse character. Despite the lack of updates these last 20 years, Melee's meta continues to develop in surprising ways. For most of Melee's competitive history, shifts in the meta have been brought about through a few different means. Firstly, we've developed a better understanding of the game's engine and how to abuse it, like when Wizzy discovered SDI.
What?
Secondly, we've had certain players pushing characters in new directions, like when Wizzy discovered that Captain Falcon can be lame.
What?
Thirdly, we've had a general refinement of abilities over time, allowing for play that was once locked behind an execution barrier to become standard, like when Zane started hitting pivot tippers all the time. However, there's a fourth category of this sort that has been defining the meta for the last few years of competitive Melee, especially at the tippy-top level. It's something I call making the game easier exclusively, or McGee for short. McGee is all about finding the path of least resistance towards the win while getting creative with the rules. Most importantly, it's about making sure the benefits of your strategy are exclusive to you. You'll find examples of this in many competitive scenes. If you know anything about weightlifting, then you can think of McGee like pulling sumo on deadlifts, or doing whatever it is this guy is doing instead of bench pressing. Some instances of McGee in the Melee meta have been common among top players for a while now. These include adding custom notches to your controller, removing the springs from the triggers to remove analog shielding, and even one instance of tying a piece of floss to your finger to allow for effortless ASDI down as you dash dance. Prior to 2017, there were a handful of controllers that benefited from easier shield drops and better dashback. Players who had these controllers were able to take advantage of these techs more easily than their opponents. In short, they had controllers that made the game easier exclusively. In 2017, the Universal Controller Fix mod was released. The stated goal of UCF was to turn any controller into a good controller without going beyond what was normally possible in vanilla Melee. Effects on the meta were apparent soon after. Shielding on a platform became the entirety of Sheik's neutral, and the consistency of dashing back made whiff punishing and chain grabbing easier. The problem with UCF was that it was a software mod to Melee, meaning that players with money could no longer use that money for a controller that would give them an advantage. The remedy to this problem was obvious: development of new controllers that McGee'd. Shortly after UCF was released, Hacks released the Smashbox. The Smashbox was a completely digital controller built for a game based on analog inputs. The precision of a digital controller trivialized techs that were previously beyond consistent implementation on a standard GameCube controller. For example, characters with strong uptilts such as Fox, Falco, and Kirby benefited greatly from box-style controllers, effectively buffing them via McGee. The extent of this buff was so concerning that Hacks preemptively nerfed the Smashbox's ability to perform some of these techs to ensure that they would be tournament legal. As a student of Machiavelli, Hacks is aware that you can't totalitarian tiptoe anywhere unless you get your foot in the door. Goomwave controllers have since followed box-style controllers. They allow for things like button remapping, easier uptilts, and notch calibration, all while looking like a standard GameCube controller. Unlike box-style controllers, Goomwaves benefit by not tipping your hand to your opponent that you'll be able to do things he or she can't do with their non-optimal controller. By pricing them at $400 for all the whistles and bells, the competent management team at Goomwave have assured their customers that the benefits of their controllers will not be available to the average Joe. Let's now take a look at the pattern that's emerging. Pre-UCF, expensive controllers conveyed benefits to a select few. UCF leveled the playing field while also changing the meta. Box waves come out to convey additional benefits for those willing to pay. What comes next? I think it's quite obviously Melee 1.03, the brain baby of Hacks. A software mod that gives all GameCube controllers the benefits of a Smashbox Wave 1 by changing the game itself. Now, it's completely reasonable to scoff at the changes to the wave dash mechanics and the implementation of the tilt stick, but you need to realize that box wave players are already playing on Melee 1.03. So you've got two options if you want to maintain competitive integrity that isn't locked behind a paywall. Either get on the 1.03 bandwagon, or make that bandwagon illegal in tournament play. I know which one I would choose.